Okay, everyone, in this video, I'm going to go over the sections of your lab poster. So you'll take your lab sheet and break it up into sections. And so each of these boxes describes what's going to be found in each of the sections for your poster. So the first section up here is Science Practice 1, your concept explanation. This is where you're going to connect the lab that we're doing to the biological principle or topic that we have covered in class. You're going to want to make sure that this concept explanation is using your words. So you'll want to make sure that in this section you don't have any pictures or any graphs. This is just the word explanation. So you're going to want to underline any key terms. Make sure, since this is an explanation, you include the what, how, and why. So this should not be a single sentence. There should be more information about how the lab connects to a biological principle. So remember, you're making a connection. So you're not just defining words. You're taking those words and applying them to the lab that we are doing. Science Practice 2 is your visual representation. So in your visual representation, this is where you draw out pictures of the underlying concept of the lab. So you're not just drawing random pictures, you're connecting it to the lab that we're doing and the topic that the lab is covering. You can create flow charts of the processes as well if drawing a picture is not enough. Now you can label to show and summarize what the representation is showing, but it cannot be in the concept explanation. This is a very short summary of what you're drawing. This is the key thing. It's a drawing of some kind. And make sure that you're showing relationship between concepts or processes. So don't just define the terms or just don't draw general definitions. Make sure it's connecting to the lab that we are doing. In Science Practice 3, this is your lab design part. So you're going to identify the question that was asked, and you can get this from the pre-lab. You're going to state your null and alternative hypothesis. You're going to identify the independent and dependent variables. You're going to identify the control. You're going to propose a new investigation. And you're going to draw the lab setup. So this one is just going to require some thinking after you are done with the lab. How can you take this further? What else could you test or experiment with if we had the time to do it? Now, we're not going to propose a new investigation, but it is something that I just want you to think about. In this section right here, I also want you to include a data table. This is the data table that your experiment actually comes up with. So you'll have just the data table collected here. That's your Science Practice 3. And then Science Practice 4 and 5 is your graph and statistical analysis. So this is where you're going to construct the graph based on the data that you obtained. You definitely want to make sure that you use correct orientation, labeling of axes, units, and scalings. Don't forget SAD at this part right here. If we need a trend line, we will add trend lines. But if we don't have trend lines and we're doing something like a bar graph instead, that is where we will be using either standard deviation, standard error of the mean, a possible chi-square, or box whisker plots. But these are going to be the statistical analysis pieces, your graph. However best to represent your data is going to be in this box right here. Now, Science Practice 6 is the one that's going to be the hardest to do. Okay? Now, the claim itself is not going to be that difficult. This is going to be whatever based on the experiment in the pre-lab that you are doing goes over. Providing the evidence to support the claim, also not difficult, because that's where you're going to use the evidence from here, the data from here, to support the claim that you have made. And then this is the part that gets a little bit more challenging, these two right here. Providing reasoning to justify a claim by connecting the biological theories. So this is the why portion of your experiment. Why does the evidence support the claim? And so restating the evidence for this point right here is not going to be sufficient. You have to explain why that evidence supports your claim. And then the last bit is going to be explain the relationship between the experimental results and a larger biological concept. So again, this experiment that you are doing, this claim, evidence, this claim and evidence part is just from the lab itself. Nothing to do with biology at this point. It's just the evidence. These two right here is where you connect it to a topic we have learned in biology. So I hope this video was helpful. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.